Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. Let's get started with our hosts, Linda Mckissack and Dana Gentry.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. I'm Linda Mckissack.
And I'm Dana Gentry.
Hey, Dana, what's new with you?
Hey there. Man, this has been a crazy week or so, hasn't it?
Are y'all back in, can you get out? Are you still stuck in the house or?
Yeah, no, we can get out. And actually tonight, I've waited all week. Tonight, I'm going to go and get tacos. I'm getting my tacos tonight from an actual restaurant.
It's the simple things in life, right? Just a taco here and there.
It is the simple things. Yes, for sure. I'm excited. What about you guys?
Pretty much the same. I think we're gonna maybe try to hit a restaurant that has an outside seating. We're dipping our toe into getting out.
Yeah, same.
So I'm super excited. We have some great guests today. Some I've known for a long time. I think Ruth and I go back to being business partners in the Carmel office.
Yes.
How many years ago, Ruth? Do you?
2003.
Wow.
Awesome. And then Erin and I are Vegas buddies, but don't let that make it sound like we're more excited than we are, right, Erin?
That's right.
I mean, we were like pretty boring. Well, I don't know. She might have not been so boring, but I was definitely boring. And then Lisa, you and I don't know each other quite as well, but I look forward to getting to know you better. And I see you at all the things. So I know you're learning based and we show up in a lot of the same places.
Very much so learning based. Absolutely.
Awesome.
She's a good one. They're all good ones.
All right. Good deal. Well, Dana, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. So, I think that this was really important for us to do a podcast and really just kind of bring awareness. And so, we're very appreciative of all three of you guys for responding to our calls and texts and just saying, hey, we want to reach out and be able to talk about everything that's been going on the last couple of weeks. So, I think it's okay to say we're having some tragic times in our country. And, Linda and I talked about this and when we talk about racism and the horrible things that have happened, Linda and I think, Linda, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've always talked that we felt like being a white person and being a Christian and not being racist was that we were good. We're not racist. We're not racist people. Yeah. I mean, it's never even crossed our mind. We don't see color. We love God. And because we're Christians, that's enough. And the reality is we've been having conversations, as have many other people, that's not enough. And not really knowing, not to sound ignorant, but to sound ignorant, not knowing what to do and how to be activists and how to activate change. Because it's crazy. And, I sat on a Zoom this morning and of RDs, well, actually, Linda, of a bunch of regional leaders. And I don't know if you were on there, but people said that they had written down words. And it was funny because all of the white people's words were like basically anxiety and we don't know what to do, confusion, how can we help make a difference? Mm-hmm. So Linda and I were talking and we said, man, we have a ton of respect for these three ladies. And we just wanted to kind of openly talk and just be transparent and have you guys share with us so that we can use this platform to hopefully make a difference and open other people's minds. Because Linda, you always teach us that people don't do things because we make them. They do things when they self-discover, and they self-discover through questions, stories, and experiences. And during this time, we can't give those stories and experiences, but y'all can.
Right. So, yeah. I'd like to start off with Ruth. And I love your story, Ruth. I bragged to everybody about Ruth was in the FBI. She was like bossing those men around and stuff. So why don't you kind of tell us, each of you, we'll go down the line. We'll start with you, Ruth, and kind of tell us your story, because our tribe are realtors. I mean, we love the real estate industry. We love realtors. And our goal is to make their lives better and educate and, add value where we can. So why don't you kind of give us a brief kind of history of how you got here, and then go from there, anything you want to share.
Thanks, and I will. Let me share with you first. My internet gets a little spotty sometimes down here in Florida. You never know. So, but you'll only miss a word here and there. So, but
you're in the blank.
Yeah. I have 33 years of law enforcement experience. I started on the Indianapolis Police Department. I was there 11 years. I got recruited. Well, what happened is the police department sent me away to the FBI National Academy, a 12-week training course for managers. While there, I got recruited by both the FBI and the DEA. Now, you say FBI, we're sister agencies, but I went to the DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration.
Okay.
Still, it's a sister agent to the FBI under the Department of Justice. So I have a total of 33 years there. I started out as a street agent with DEA, ended up retiring as a special agent in charge. I had 30 offices and about 400 people. About 300 of them were special agents that I was in charge of. And I had 3 states, and I was responsible for the national drug strategy for those 3 states.
Wow.
The first thing I can tell you, based on what's going on today, I didn't get any complaints from citizens about my agents abusing anyone. But that message comes from the top.
Yeah, starts with the leader.
Yes, it does. So that's who I am. And how I got here was once I retired, I had lived in 8 cities. And after living all over and buying 13 houses, selling them because I'd live in one for 2 or 3 years, and then they'd move me and I'd buy another. I knew I loved that chase of finding a house, and I would always find the dog and fix it up and sell it.
Make money.
And make money and buy another. When I retired, I had 5 houses that I owned at that time. So after sitting at home for about 6 months, I thought, what can I do that won't be so stressful? So I decided it would be real estate. Was that a mistake? Because I jumped out of one pot into a frying pan because real estate is very stressful. So that's how I got into real estate. I decided I wanted to be into real estate, and that's what I did, and that's where I met Linda.
Yep, we became partners in the Carmel Market Center in I don't know, maybe early 2000s or something.
In around 2003, I think it was.
Yes, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right, so Ruth, tell us, what do we not know? What can we do besides just not be racist? What can anybody who's asking that question? I mean, all of our hearts are broken. Mo put out the most beautiful letter.
She did.
And it's from my broken heart to yours. And I thought that is such a beautiful way to say it, because, you just, and then in absence of clarity, people just do nothing, or at least I do. Maybe I'm the only one that does that, but I just do nothing, and then that doesn't feel very good either. So
a lot of people do nothing, Linda. Even when those protesters were protesting all across the country, most of the leaders did nothing, but they needed to do something. The conversation I had with my office in Carmel was, I told them, the mayors, the state legislatures, the governors, the chiefs, the sheriffs, those people should be changing the policy of their departments so that the protesters know that people are taking action. They're doing something that they're going to be committed to. You've got to do something. You can't just sit there on your hands and not do anything while people are grieving and in pain. And the injustice is there. When you watch that video, we know something is horribly wrong in our system. And it didn't just happen yesterday. It's not everyone. It is a few, but those few are enough to impact all of us. So they should have been working on making changes, and they still need to do that. They, at least now, the Minneapolis chief has called for a civil rights investigation into his department. And Gary Keller put out a memo and said he created a task force in our IALC that's taking action.
Yeah.
And so that's what each of our offices have to do. We have to meet with the people in our office. You don't come up with a magic fix right away, but you brainstorm it and you come up with ideas to make it better. Let me give you a little example about something about how we feel about things. Someone told me this story and I just want to share it with you. If you close your eyes while I tell you this, it's 9 o'clock at night, it's dark, you need to go to the ATM. You get in your car, you go to the ATM, you drive up there, you get out of your car, You get your card out and you start getting your money. You hear something, you look around, and there's a black man standing behind you, and he's got on baggy jeans and one of those hoodie shirts.
Yeah.
Think about how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
Now take that same example. Now you're getting your money out of the machine. Think about it. Your heart's racing. You know, what's going on in your head? What are you thinking? Take that same scenario and say if you were at the machine and a white guy walks up behind you and he's wearing cutoffs and Izod shirt and looking all cool. Are your emotions the same? Are you thinking the same things? So sometimes we have these things that have been inbred in us over the years. We don't even know that they're there, but they are. And it starts with our children. So what you tell your children and what I told my child are totally different. What I would tell my son when he was growing up is, don't do anything to get stopped, please. When you're around the police, be careful. You probably told your children, oh, they're there to help you. I told my son, they will arrest you and beat you if you don't do what they tell you to do. And if they stop you, you say nothing but yes, sir, and no, sir, and don't you blink, and you look them right in the eye. I mean, the conversation is different. So there's a lot of work that has to be done for all of us in our perceptions and how we think and how we feel and how we act with people.
Ruth, would you have told your children, because I assume when your children were little, were you working in law enforcement or not?
Yes, I was.
You
I
was.
was in law enforcement.
You told them that, and you actually worked in law enforcement.
Yes, I did. But the key was the people that I worked with never committed offenses against the public. And if they did, they knew that I would say something. I would tell them that it was not appropriate or to stop, or I would report them. In fact, I got in trouble once because I reported somebody and everybody else agreed with the wrong person and no one else was agreeing with me who was telling the truth. But I had a reputation for telling on people if they did something inappropriate, and I would not tolerate any abuse by anybody that I worked with, and would not tolerate it by anyone that worked for me as I went up the ladder. So, but there were still instances of people getting beat or being mistreated by police, and I didn't want my son to end up being one of those, and I would tell him what his demeanor needed to be if he got stopped. Do one other thing. If you drive down the street, I know in my community, and Carmel is a nice area, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Black agents are Black people are subject to be stopped 18 and a half times more than a white person is.
Wow.
If you drive down the street and you look at a car that's pulled over, just count the next 10 cars you see that are pulled over. Look in the window and tell me if they're black or if they're white. And just do it until you've gone to 10 and then total up what is. That's what you need to see. We know there's a problem in our society. We just need to figure out how to overcome it.
So true. Very well said. Wow.
Very well said.
That's a great example. Erin, how about you? Talk to us. How'd you get into real estate?
Yeah, well, my experience is much different than Ruth's.
Yay! I'm seeing Ruth with this big gun.
No,
I do have one.
I pretty much manifested this life for myself. Ever since I was in second grade, I told people I was going to be a real estate agent. Seriously, I was like, people were like, what are you going to do? I'm going to be a real estate agent. And I said that every single year of my life, even in college. I remember like raising my hand and asking my stats professor and said, how will this actually apply to what I'm going to do? And he said, well, what are you going to do? And I was like, I'm going to be a real estate agent. So here I am, 4 years in, well, it'll be 4 years in August, 4 years in. And I am a realtor doing my dream job. I don't know, I love all of it. I love the chaos. I love everything about it. There are some days where I'm like, why? But why did I pick this? But at the end of the day, I'm still like, every morning I wake up like, oh, you're doing your dream. So definitely feel very happy about that. I was raised a little bit differently. I guess not really differently, in a sense that, like Ruth talked about her cautioning her son with policemen and whatnot. So that was definitely how I was always raised. My mom is a doctor, and my father is a biomedical engineer. So my mom's a psychologist, but she has her doctorate degree and she is a professor. And what I've always been told was, you're either going to do worse than me or you're going to be way better. And it was not an option to be worse than my parents.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to always go above my parents. That was the standard. It's still set like that. Whatever you do, make sure that you make more money than me.
Mm-hmm.
So they've also raised me to know that you are a Black person and you are going to have to work 10 times harder than anybody else, always. So that's how I was always raised. I actually just put in an offer on a house, my first home, on Monday, and it got accepted. Yeah, I'm very excited about it. I don't know if you all know where Oakwood is, in Dayton, Ohio. Okay. It's close to me. Oakwood is known for pulling people over, driving while Black. That's what we call it, driving while Black. So you'll get pulled over and you'll get checked. Why are your car windows tinted? My best friend got checked. She's a woman. She has an Impala, and she was driving, and they were like, where are you going? And it's just that it's at night, and that's why they pulled her over. So that house is very close to Oakwood, and the reason why I picked that house was I was like, it's going to be a great Airbnb one day, because it's in a location where lots of people want. My parents, though, the initial thought was, you can't walk around that. You cannot walk in your neighborhood. They've told me this several times. Still, it's still a conversation, because it's only 4 days into me getting the offer accepted. You can't walk in your neighborhood. So just because we don't know the type of people that live in the neighborhood, and things like this and circumstances like this that happen definitely bring more heightened awareness to my surroundings, everything. I'm so happy that I'm having conversations with the both of you, having conversations with, other members of Keller Williams that are white and that are just asking questions, because it's okay to ask questions. And I'm here and I'm open to give solutions and answers, or what I think is a good solution. Yet at the same time, I'm cautious. Yesterday I was at a patio, and I was talking with a KW associate, and they were talking to me, and I got very nervous to go walk to my car. I already noticed that I'm the only Black person on the patio, and I'm just nervous.
Wow.
These instances that happen make it very heightened. And the instance that happened with George Floyd, it's made everything very heightened for you, because more people are aware. Now, this happens weekly. This one was just publicized.
Yeah.
This one was just publicized. So at a mass where everybody's talking. So I'm always cautious. Yet I think when things like this, you kind of put a barrier up, and you have to slowly break it down to realize that, people are just talking with you.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, you said two things I want to kind of go back to. One, you said your parents have always told you you'd have to work harder. Have you found that to be true in the real estate business? Have you really found that? I mean, it really is. You either have to be smarter, or give me an example of that. Or
yeah, I definitely have. I'm also 26. I'll be 27 in 11 days, but I'm 26 years old. So not only do I feel like age is a thing for me, I also think race is a thing.
Okay.
It comes down to how you sound.
Yeah.
How you sound on the phone, how you present yourself, what car you drive, everything. It comes down to all of that, and you're being judged on a high level. How good do you know the area here? Like, you have to think, are they asking me that because of the color of my skin. There's just certain things. So I definitely feel like, yes, I do have to work harder. And that's just the reality. Yet luckily that's how I've been raised. So it's nothing new for me. It's always just been the standard that was set at a very young age.
And then the second question I have is, your parents said you can't go walk in your neighborhood. And most people would think that's because your neighborhood's unsafe. And they're thinking it's because you're the only Black person? Or what are they thinking that? Because are they worried like something? To me, even the gentleman who was jogging and the crazy people who killed him while he was jogging, I can see how it wouldn't just be law enforcement. I'd never really thought about that, but you got to look out for crazies. I mean, crazy people. This guy was jogging. I can't even remember what city it was in. I don't know if it's Atlanta or somewhere. Jogging just a few weeks before this.
Ahmad.
Yes, and he's jogging, and you can't even, feel safe walk down the street. So I can see how that would relate. But most people would say, "Hey, now you're in a neighborhood that's up and coming, but it's not safe." But that's not what your parents were saying at all. They're saying,
no.
You're going to stand out.
Yeah. I probably will stand out.
Your winning personality that we all know.
Right. No, it's already like initially those things can't be a deterrent for me not to get a house though. If I constantly did that, I would probably be living somewhere that I didn't want to, and I wasn't going to make money off of where I'm going to live in the future. Like, this was an investment, so I had to think as an investor. So yeah, my parents were definitely saying, be careful. The neighborhood might be safe to you, but to me, it's not safe. And so I don't know if it's safe. I don't know what my neighbors are like. I don't know how they feel. Yet if I ever have, I'm single, so if I ever have a guy that comes over, he's going to have to get in my house quick. That's the truth. Like, I don't know my neighbors. I don't want them to think like, who's that Black man, hanging around her house.
But honestly,
at night.
I'm glad that you shared that, because that's nothing that I would have ever thought of before. I mean, these are the types of conversations that we don't think about that stuff. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just, I would have never have thought that. But there are people who would, and there are people that need to hear that. And, I don't know. I was just thinking as you just said that about your parents, because I think so many people think that only really underprivileged folks have those conversations with their kids, but that's not the case. I mean, and Lisa, I know you've had the same conversations with your, I mean, so it's not, I don't know. This is really good.
First thing comes to my mind is, if you're a neighbor, if you're Erin's neighbor and you were hearing this, the first thing I would say we could do is, let's go let Erin know that we're her neighbor.
She's safe.
You know what I mean? You're safe.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would have never thought about that. I would have said, hey, and I would have waved at her. I would have never thought she might be feeling like she doesn't know who she could trust over here and who she couldn't.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Wow. That's very enlightening, Erin.
Yeah.
Lisa, what about you?
I am in year 5 of being in real estate. This is the most wonderful career I have ever had. And I'm a former hairstylist, and I had a beautiful, wonderful 18 years of building a clientele and building relationships with those folks, and love them dearly. But I decided to go into real estate. And it's been a wonderful journey. It's been a journey of awe and very unexpected levels of success that I'm grateful for every day. This whole situation, I have a lot to say. My goodness, we could be on here for 3 hours and have these kind of conversations.
We got the time. Go for it.
There's a parts if we have to.
Yeah, for sure.
I just want to first start out and say, Ruth, I appreciate you. You are one of those women that we as a Black community applaud, and that we say, yes, Ruth is who we are, right? Ruth is who we are. Erin's parents are who we are. We are not just the images and the storylines that have been fed to us through the media in America. You know, the excellence of Blackness is something that needs to be celebrated more so than, you know, the lower parts of our culture. And Erin, I applaud you even more. I mean, you're young, you're 26, buying your first house. That is awesome. So I appreciate you too. So that's excellent, absolutely excellent. And what keeps coming to mind as Erin was talking is all of the things that the white culture takes for granted, that we don't have the luxury of taking for granted, right? And all of the conversations that I've been having with people in the office and people that have been calling me and texting me and pulling me to the side and wanting to have these conversations, there's a theme that's been running through it, and that is this idea of white privilege. And I know that when people hear that term, they automatically think, oh, well, I don't live a life of privilege. I don't live a life, you know, I work hard every day and I have my troubles and I have my struggles and I have, you know, problems and issues in my family. And, you know, we didn't come from money and we didn't, you know, we had to struggle just like everybody else. But just as Erin was talking about, you don't have the same fears that we have, right? And what Ruth was talking about with, you know, officers pulling you over on the side of the road, you don't have to worry about if you're going to lose your life today, right? You're angry, you're upset that you're getting stopped by the police and you're going to get a ticket and you're going to have to pay a fee and your insurance is going to go up. But you might not lose your life that day. And it's not even a question. That's a luxury that you have being white in America. And Black people, unfortunately, do not have that same luxury. So when we talk about white privilege, that's what we're talking about, okay? When you go into a grocery store, when you go into Macy's, you know, wherever you go, if you walk into a hotel, you are not automatically a criminal coming in to steal. Black people don't have that luxury. We are watched. We are, you know, not given the benefit of the doubt. You know, so those are things that you guys don't have to think about, that we have to be aware of constantly. And the stress of that, constant scrutiny, you know, what Erin talked about having to be better, having to work harder, to quote unquote, prove yourself worthy. Those are the things that Black people have to deal with on a daily basis, that you just don't have to. You can show up and be okay and be mediocre and get the listing and get the business. We can't just show up. We have to be excellent at all times.
Very good point. Do we see an end in sight ever?
I think that, I think we're getting a little better. Unfortunately, I can only say little, because the same things that are happening today were happening back in the 50s. In the 30s and the 40s, you know what I mean? You know, the civil rights, prior to the civil rights movement, during the civil rights movement, our men were getting shot and hung and stabbed and killed, right? Same thing is happening today. So have we progressed? I don't know. But the fact that we are having, and I'm sure Ruth and Erin can speak to this as well, the conversations that I'm having today, I've never had. Not to the level that we're having them today.
That's correct.
So that's what gives me hope. That's what like eases some of the pain. I'm like, it's horrible that George Floyd had to lose his life in that way, but there's so many other George Floyds that never get spoken about. There's so many other George Floyds that don't hit social media. And it's unfortunate that had to happen, but thank God we're able to have the conversation now. And we can bring some light and bring some understanding to, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement. We're not yelling and screaming for nothing. This is happening in the streets every single day. You just happen to see one of the worst situations on social media. But this happens to us every day.
Yeah, there has to be a major adjustment in attitude. People automatically think that not all, not all on either side, but people automatically think that Black people are there to do them harm or to do something bad, or like the the ATM situation, they automatically go to the negative when it's a Black person.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you about my real estate business. Now, I had both Black and white business, but I didn't get my business the way most people do. And I tell other Black agents that too. I farmed neighborhoods. I did cold calling. I worked FISBOs, but I didn't get white business that way. I always could get the appointment, but when I showed up, no matter how great I was in the interview, I couldn't get the listing. The way I would get the listings from whites is through the friends that I have, because I have such a variety and a diverse group of friends. My white friends would refer me to their white friends, and because they vouched for me, then when I did my presentation, I would get that listing.
Yeah.
But I couldn't get any of the others, no matter how great I was. I used to think that I didn't do them well. I took people with me. I took a manager with me, and I said, I want you to evaluate how I do my listing presentation. And nobody can find any faults with it. It's just that they would say, well, I mean, if these are people that I was connected with on the telephone, they had not seen me before, and I show up at their door for the listing presentation. First, they're in shock, but then they're cordial and they sit down and they listen, but I don't get the listing, you know? It's like,
wow.
Oh, well. But I did have both businesses, but I just didn't get them the way other people get listings.
Right.
So
Right.
I had to have a connection for my white business.
I wanted to talk a little bit about what Ruth said as far as the ATM. I love your ATM.
That's a great analogy.
Story. And I want to kind of bring up, you know, I've been saying this all week, the images and the storylines that has been fed to America concerning people of color, and especially Black people, that storyline and those images have been manipulated to fit a narrative that the media and that the power structure has wanted you to think, so that when this treatment is shelled out, you as the American community think that they are deserving of it, right? And so there isn't an outcry because they are already criminalized by the images and the storylines that you've been seeing. If you look at movies, if you look at TV shows, Black people, the people of color, are always either in a criminal situation, they're in these low working situations. Rarely do you see people in places that you don't see Black power images, you don't see Black excellence images, you don't see highly educated Black people in the images and the storylines that have been told. You only hear them when you talk to people like Erin, and when you talk to people like Ruth, and you hear, you know, of these stories of people that are, you know, doing extremely well in the Black communities. So when you see the guy in the hoodie, you remember, you know, all of those stories and all of those images that you've been fed over time, that this is what Black people are. Wow. And that's where it comes from. When you think about, when you turn around and you're afraid, where does that fear come from? And I'm so glad that Ruth brought that up, because that's where you have to start. You have to dig into your own brain and find the source of that fear. And I can guarantee you that it's not anything that you've encountered on your own.
Good
This
point.
is something that you have experienced through media.
Wow, that is a good point. I mean, between the analogy and that point, that's very enlightening. It's, because it had to come from somewhere, right? If you you haven't had an experience, it came from somewhere. It came from stories you heard or news you read or whatever. Wow.
You know, Lisa, you said, oh, sorry, Erin, go ahead.
Oh, I was just talking about I was talking to my mother. We go on morning walks now, 15,000 a day, 15,000 steps a day. So I was talking to my mother about that yesterday, and she said, well, when you drop a food coloring, one drop of food coloring into a cup of water, what happens? That color just spreads.
Yeah.
All it takes is one instance, and then fire. Like it just spreads. So one bad instance can turn you sour, and then you spread the word. It's the same with anything. One good instance spreads.
Yeah.
Because that's your point of reference at that point, right?
Right.
That's right.
If you don't have a positive point of reference, you only can gravitate towards what you've seen exterior, on the outside of your life. If you have, Linda, I'm sure all of your interactions with Ruth have been wonderful, right?
Yeah.
But if all you knew was media portrayals of Black women, you probably wouldn't have the best idea about who you thought Ruth was until you interacted with her.
I always get told I look mad, and sometimes I think, is that your perception because people think I'm a mad Black woman, or is it my face that actually like rests kind of angry? Like, what is it? And sometimes it always makes me like I smile at that comment, and now I know to shake it off. Yet that is definitely a thought, because I'm like, you may have been thought that in movies because of that one Black woman who portrayed a mad Black woman, and I'm angry, and I'm not.
What's your behavior? Have you ever done a behavioral assessment, Erin? Are you like a drive? Your DISC?
Yeah,
my DISC, I'm a high I, C.
I was going to say, I feel like you're the furthest thing from mad ever. So because I knew you were a high I.
That's interesting.
Lisa,
well,
you said,
do you think men get more of the bad rap than Black women? Do you think it's men more than women?
Yes.
Yeah, I would think so too.
Yeah.
Black men are feared in America.
Yeah.
The scariest thing in the world to white America is a Black man, because it's been instilled since slavery, unfortunately.
So actually, that's something, Lisa, that I was getting ready to say, because you touched on something when you said white privilege, and I agree with you, because when I've heard that before, that's been my first reaction is and Linda's the same. Neither one of us grew up privileged, and so that's always been my thought. And so I've been doing a ton of a lot of research over the last, since this happened really. And I watched this video that circulated on Instagram, and I'm going to find it so we can post it in our show notes, because it's like a 3-minute video, but it's talking about white privilege. And then it talks about, and it goes all the way back to, we still have some areas in our country that redline, and we still have a lot of areas that have, because the purpose of the video is talking about Black kids are at different schools than what some of the white kids are.
What does redline mean?
So redlining, Linda, is where they go, the government or the county or state or whatever will go in, and they used to, and some still do, not to this literal fact, but they would draw a red line on a map and say, okay, this is the underprivileged area, and so this area is going to go to a certain school. And there are stats that show that in those areas, the government wouldn't loan money to those people. And so that's why a lot of the times you'll hear, just like I love that Erin said she's buying her first house, because I wanted to bring this up. That's why a lot of Black people, nobody in their families ever owned houses, because they lived in areas that our banks wouldn't loan them money.
That is so true. So true.
And so, and honestly, like Ruth, I had never heard that in my life until this week. I didn't even know what that was.
I did. I knew about it.
But this is the educating that honestly, I think makes a big difference. And so then when you go on to talk about, when the video goes on to talk about how, because of that, then certain Black kids are sent to certain schools. So they may not have they don't have the chance or the privilege that some of the white kids have had who are at different schools to get opportunities, which have led them to go on to college. That maybe some of the Black kids.
This is so deep, because those schools also don't get the same funding.
Right.
And the people that live in those neighborhoods can't get the loans for the houses because they're not considered stable because they live in this area.
That's exactly
that has existed. It's better now, but I think it still happens. They just don't let us see how they do it, but it has been a pattern.
I know exactly how they do it. Now there's a demographic sheet.
Yes.
There hasn't always been a demographic sheet. There's now a demographic sheet, and I'm excited to see this through the loan process because I've had a buyer. I remember the first time I saw it because at the closing table, my buyer, who did not identify as Black, said, "What is this? Why is this check Black? Who checked this?"
And 9 times out of 10, when they take the application, when the loan officer is taking the application, they're doing it over the phone or via an app, right? So how do you determine what nationality this person is or what race this person is? And how dare you assume? Based on a name, based on a tone of voice. I don't know how many times I've been told I have an accent. I do? And you mean my Black accent? That's what you're talking about. I sound like a Black person. Is that what you mean? So the audacity of labeling people through your ignorance is appalling. So you're absolutely right, Erin. I've seen it too. And I'm just like, when is this going to stop? What difference does it make what demographic I quote unquote fit? Because there's a lot of us that don't fit in any of them. Me personally, I can't check one thing. I'm a combination of white, Black, I got a whole bunch of stuff going on. So I claim it all. So you can't say, I can't look at a form and check a box.
So what do you do, Lisa? Just out of
it just depends.
curiosity.
It just depends. Sometimes I just don't do anything. And it just depends on the day. Sometimes I'll check white, sometimes I'll check Black. Just depends on how I feel for that day. Do that. And I have the luxury of doing that. I guess you can say, if I don't know if that's appropriate or not, but that's the world that I live in, being a biracial person. So the whole, if we want to think it, going back to what Dana was talking about with redlining, if you think about home ownership and the financial opportunities that brings to a family, when you're buying and selling and you're building equity and you're building wealth, and your parents' were able to do that, and you're 3 and 4 generations into that wealth building, and understanding that not all Black families had that privilege. Now, that's not to say that all Black people were subject to that kind of scrutiny, because there is Black wealth that has spanned back to post-slavery days. So don't think that every Black family is destitute and poor and underprivileged. But those that were kind of snuffed out of that opportunity of home ownership and that wealth building opportunity. And that is something that is felt for generations, because how long does it take to build that kind of wealth?
For sure. Yeah.
And it's unfortunate they were not able to receive that. Being an American citizen, that's a right of an American citizen, right?
Yeah.
Wow. So go ahead, Linda.
Well, I was just going to say, I love this, and we're about out of time, but I wanted to, as we wrap up, I wanted to do a couple things. One, I've been enlightened here. I learned from Lisa that I have white privilege, even though I'm thinking it's, I was born on welfare, climbed my way out of it. I don't have any white privilege, but I do. And I never realized that. So thank you for that. And with Erin, I realized that what we would consider a safe neighborhood, Erin has to wake up every single day and worry and slide her boyfriends in the back door if when she has one or whatever. I mean, that was shocking to me. And I learned from Ruth, who was in the highest of law enforcement, even she had to remind her children how to act if they were pulled over. I mean, unbelievable.
We all have to talk to our sons and our daughters about how to behave in public, and especially how to behave if you do have an encounter with the police. You do not make any sudden movements. Your hands are shown at all times. Don't reach for anything. Don't say anything,
And now you got to worry that that's not even enough, that cannot even.
That's not even enough, because Mr. Floyd was handcuffed.
Yeah. And not resisting.
Yes.
Handcuffed in the back and taken out of the car to be murdered. I mean,
so sad.
Devastating.
So what would, last final words, we'll go across to all three, and then Dana, if you have any final thoughts, what would be any final thoughts or this has been super powerful for me, and I'm sure everybody listening is gonna have some major ahas.
Yeah. My solution to agents, from agent to agent, what you can do in your office, and what I've talked to my team lead about doing, is each city that you get a new buyer in, we have a duty to educate and be that local expert. So not only do we know vendors, we need to know the city mayor, we need to know the city council, you need to know everybody, because if our job is to have people, know, like, and trust us, then they need to come to us, and when we're done and we close the deal, we need to give them a packet and say, I know the city mayor. You can talk to them if you ever need anything. And that's not just with Black people, that's with anybody. Give them a packet and do your research. Think of it just as a referral partner. Now I have a referral partner in my own city that I need to give information to, so that way I can educate people. And if there ever is something that happens in their own city, they can go and they know where to write letters. They know who to talk to and ask for answers. I think we have a responsibility as agents to be true local experts in that way.
Awesome. Great advice. Lisa?
I think that we need to be open to the conversations. White people, my message to you is just stop and listen. Don't judge. Don't come with your preconceived notions about what you think is happening. Don't look at the rioters as being crazy and why are they tearing up their own communities and why are they, doing this? Well, first of all, most of them are not owners of what they have. They don't own the communities, they don't own the businesses, so they're not tearing up their own, first of all. Second of all, you have to understand that this has been hundreds of years of abuse and terror that Black people have experienced. And it's not for lack of trying. We've tried the peaceful protest. We've tried, talking with our public officials. We've tried every and any opportunity that we've had to create change in a peaceful manner. The beacon of peaceful protest with Martin Luther King, that's the one that everybody feels comfortable with. He preached peace and peaceful protest and nonviolence, and they murdered him. So I'm sorry, white America, we've tried to do it in the way that you find it acceptable, but it hasn't worked because our babies and our men and our sisters are dying in the streets at your hands. So maybe if we tear up your stuff, maybe if we attack your pocket, maybe you might listen now. What is it that you need from us to make you listen? And the only reason why we're coming to you and we're asking you for help is because we're only 12% of the population. We have no power when it comes to government. We have no economic power outside of our dollars that we spend. We have huge amounts of money of spending power in America. If you look at what Black people contribute to the economy, it's astounding what the numbers are. But we have no seats of power. We have no economic power. So we don't really have a voice per se because we are only 12% of the population. So white people were coming to you to ask you for help because we as human beings cannot do it on our own. We need to enlist those that are in seats of power, and we have to plead with your conscience so that you see us as human beings and not as this subset that doesn't really need to be dealt with. You are the majority culture and you hold the power. So we need to each one teach one, and we need to have these conversations more and more and more because Linda, you just said, you just realized that you have white privilege. So now when you see that term, you're not going to be offended anymore. You're going to understand what we mean. And I think that there's some sensitivity that can come across in that way. So that would be the only thing that I would have to say at the end.
Thank you, Lisa. Ruth?
What I told my office was, if you see something inappropriate, say something. Video those things that are inappropriate. Call it to someone's attention, and don't allow people to be in your presence saying things that are not accurate about Black people. Stand up for something.
Yeah.
Watch more than one news outlet. You get a difference
Yes.
you get a difference of opinion if you watch other news outlets. I mean, I watch all of them. I watch Fox sometimes because I want to know what's being said. So that I tell people that all the time. Watch more than one. Just get a sampling. You don't have to watch one all the time. Just go do 10 minutes on another news station. And just, God has given us so much. Just be a blessing to someone else. Faith, hope, and love. And just love I love what I do. Love the people that are around you. Let's have more conversation. The offices should all be having conversations now. This should be happening all over the US. We need to be in conversation, and we need to figure out what needs to be done. And we need to hold our leaders accountable. They need to be doing things to help us overcome all of these obstacles.
So true. So well said.
We need to be having some fierce conversations, Linda. Fierce conversations around racism. Absolutely.
Well, you know, Lisa, yesterday I interviewed on my Wednesday Morning Mindset. I interviewed Terrell Patton out of Atlanta. And Linda, he held up the Fierce Conversations book, and he said, "This is my advice for people: is read this book, understand how to have tougher conversations, and not because the conversation is the relationship." That's what he said yesterday morning. I texted him. I said, "Linda would be so proud of you." But yeah, so Ruth, you walked right into the two things I wanted to share last. So one of them was this quote, and it's been circulating on social media, and I just loved it. And it said, "Some are posting on social media, some are protesting in the streets, some are donating silently, some are educating themselves, and some are having tough conversations with friends and family. A revolution has many lanes. Be kind to yourself and to others who are traveling in the same direction. Just keep your foot on the gas."
Yeah.
And I thought, man, that is so true. And then I know we are people of faith, and I just found like the best prayer ever this morning. And I think YouVersion put it out. And it's not long, but I wanted to read it and just kind of leave everybody with that because it's so good. And so they said it's a prayer for true justice. And it says, "Dear Heavenly Father, our hearts are heavy. We're broken. Please give us eyes to see and ears to hear where your spirit is working. Help us to see every person the way that you see them. Break our hearts for what breaks yours. Let us not merely say that we love each other, but give us the strength to mourn with those who mourn, to weep with those who weep, and to let your justice roll like waters. Let your righteousness and love flow from us like rivers of living water. Purify our hearts, Lord, and fill us with the genuine hunger for justice, for mercy, and for true peace. Because Heavenly Father, let justice and mercy just start with me, in Jesus' name." And I thought, man, that's a prayer that we all need to read and say.
We can all say amen to that.
Yeah, it was really good.
Awesome.
You guys are awesome. Thank you all for doing this so much.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Linda. This is much needed, and we appreciate you guys having a great platform for us to talk about this.
Well, we appreciate you enlightening us. And I just want to remind everyone that if you have a topic that you think would be interesting for Dana and I to cover, or you have an opportunity or a challenge that you need help with, be sure and reach out to us at info@everything life and real estate. And remember, the more description you give us of where you are in your business and your life, the more we're going to be able to help you. And if you would like to do something great for Dana and I, be sure and give us a review. And then if you can think of someone that this podcast may be helpful to, be sure and pass it along. And I just want to say thank you, ladies, each one of you, Lisa, Erin, and Ruth. I love you all, and you're sisters in Christ to me. And I thank you for enlightening us. And I just hope that we can keep spreading the curiosity. Oprah said it best when she said, people don't want to be interpreted, they want to be understood. And so thank you, ladies, for helping us understand you and what you've had to go through a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Nice meeting you, ladies.
Be sure to subscribe for more business strategies and tactics to inspire you to live an abundant real estate life. Don't forget to rate and review so we can bring you the best content. Find this and other valuable information at everythinglifeandrealestate.com.